I've been doing YouTube for a long time. Even though I've only been doing YouTube for around 2 or 3 years now, I've posted at this point over 900 videos on this channel. And the vast majority of those videos were filmed and edited by yours truly. In other words, I have put in a lot of work. I've uploaded more videos than a lot of channels that have full on teams behind them. Okay, I have given my heart and soul to this platform for the better part of 2 to 3 years, like I said. And YouTube has changed my life. It has. And I'm eternally grateful for that. But with that being said, there comes a point in time when you have to learn to follow your intuition. I remember before I quit my job at H&M, and I know I always bring up this story, but to me, it's the perfect example of the power of your intuition and the power of divinity. But before I quit my job at H&M, I had this sense that it was time to take the next step in my life. And H&M was a stepping stone that was keeping me from doing that. And with that being said, I feel like right now YouTube is holding me back in ways that aren't necessarily quantifiable. I feel like time isn't really my issue. I can make a video, work on my book, work out, do everything that I need to do on a daily basis. It's more of a spiritual thing. Okay, now this is not me quitting YouTube. This is me prioritizing my spiritual well-being and my spiritual connection, my faith, my divinity. Right now, I'm in a position in my life where I have to have faith, unwavering faith. And I feel like for the last few weeks, I've sort of oscillated back and forth between having extreme faith, surrendering to synchronicity, and having fear, having stress, stressing about my situation, stressing about the how, stressing about the when. When am I going to be able to make that leap into that next phase of my life, that breakthrough that I know is waiting for me? But what I've realized is that as long as I stay where I am, I'll never get there. I'll never get to that point. And ironically, it's through present moment awareness that I found that answer. Through being present, I got back in tune with my intuition. And what I realized is that right now, YouTube cannot be my priority. Now, I'm saying this as if I'm quitting YouTube, and that is not the case. Believe me when I tell you that. I am not quitting YouTube anytime soon. But what I can assure you is that right now, YouTube is not my number one priority. My number one priority is myself. And when I say myself, I'm not referring to my identity, the version of me that you guys know. I'm referring to the essence. I'm referring to the being beyond form. And this being lives within all of us. It is all of our true selves. And some people refer to it as God. Some people refer to it as Allah. Some people refer to it as the universe, the divine, the higher self. Me personally, I don't really care to label it. I just know that it's there and it's waiting for me. But I feel like YouTube is preventing me from tapping into that. Now, I don't know why that is. I don't know why it is that YouTube puts me so deep into my ego or ignites my ego in such a way that I begin to identify with my form again. Maybe it's because my YouTube channel is largely predicated on my identity and my story. And these are things that I need to, at least to a reasonable extent, relinquish in order to tap into my true self, in order to become my true self. I need to take the path of least resistance. And right now, YouTube is creating a lot of extra resistance in my life. I've said this before, but it's no secret that my views have been dropping. And I've been through this as a creator. Like I said, I have posted 900 videos. I have had a lot of videos that I was 100% certain would blow up that did not. And then I've had videos that I didn't think would blow up, videos that I considered to be throwaways that ended up blowing up and taking me to that next level in my life. And what I've learned is that there comes a point in time when you have to be able to identify whether the ebbs and flows, the trials and tribulations of your life are a test of your will or a test of your faith, a test of your resilience or a test of your intuition. And there have been times where I had to just tough it out. I had to stick it out through those low moments and really lock in and focus even more of my attention and energy on this platform, on my content. But right now, my intuition is telling me to do something else. My intuition is telling me to focus on my book, Ego Death, which is coming out November 11th of this year. The second book that I'm publishing in 1 year, which is crazy to think about. But that book would not have been possible had I not taken my previous break from YouTube earlier this year, back in March. Okay, whenever I took that break back in March, I was able to lock into my divine self. And through that divinity, I was able to craft a masterpiece of a book, what I would consider to be my single best piece of work in my entire life. Even better than Soul Shock, my first book. And like I said, this would not have been possible had I not surrendered to synchronicity, surrendered to divinity. I want to tell you guys a couple of quick stories real quick. The first time I took a real break from YouTube was in August of 2021, right after I broke up with my ex-girlfriend. I needed some time to decompress. I needed some time to just focus on myself, and that's exactly what I did. I took some time to focus on myself, and strange synchronistic events began to occur in my life. For example, one day I was sitting on a hill watching the sunset, and I closed my eyes and began meditating. Right there on top of that hill, I began meditating, and I remember telling myself, I'm going to manifest somebody coming up to me and talking to me right now. Now, mind you, I had been on that hill pretty much every day for the better part of 1 year, and that had never occurred. I never considered myself to be a very approachable person, especially when I'm just sitting there by myself and I'm kind of in my own bubble, but I set the intention nonetheless. 10 minutes later, this girl comes up to me, starts talking to me. But not only that, the next day, somebody else comes up and starts talking to me. Okay, it was this guy. He came up to me, started talking to me. We had a deep conversation about life, about relationships, about careers, so on and so forth. And then the next day, another girl came up to me. A completely different girl came up to me and sat next to me. And we had another deep discussion about religion and just everything else that you could think of to talk with a stranger. And that continued to happen for pretty much the remainder of that month. And I remember it blew my mind because that level of synchronicity was something that I had never tapped into when I was doing YouTube consistently. It seems like the more consistent I am on YouTube, the more logical and analytical I become. And because of that, I begin to relinquish my synchronicity. I begin to relinquish my inner divinity, which is my birthright, as it is yours. Divinity is all of our birthrights, and that path of synchronicity is available for everyone. Another example of this would be when I took my break from YouTube back in March. Literally, the first full day of my break, something told me to go to this specific place at 5 o'clock p.m. 5 o'clock p.m., go to this specific place. And I had this gut feeling that something was going to happen. I was going to see someone or someone was going to approach me, so on and so forth. That day, within a 10-minute time span, okay, I went to the place at 5 o'clock. I followed that intuitive feeling. And within a 10-minute time span, 2 people approached me to tell me that they watch my videos. Not just 1, but 2. Now, mind you, I have a relatively large following, but that is not that regular of an occurrence for me. That was the first and last time that I was approached by 2 people who both knew of my channel or who both watch my content on a regular basis, other than the meet and greet, which was obviously an organized event. This was completely spontaneous, completely divine. And those are just 2 examples, that and the people approaching me on the hill, but they're 2 examples of divinity at play when I relinquish my need to control my life. That right there is the key. And I feel like that's where YouTube holds me back in some regards, is it sort of puts me in this mindset of needing to control my life. A big part of the reason why I started YouTube was because I felt like I was lacking control. I just dropped out of school because I felt like I was lacking control. And YouTube, for the first time in my life, gave me the sense of control that I desired. But what I've realized is that there's a much deeper sense of control, a much deeper sense of power over my life, a much deeper sense of freedom in all aspects through divinity, through surrendering to synchronicity, surrendering to present moment awareness. I don't know how I'm going to continue paying my bills. I have enough money saved up, don't get me wrong, but I feel like as far as my income goes, I don't see it. I just don't see it. And sometimes it does get to me. But the way that I get past that, the way that I move beyond those situations and transcend all of my limiting beliefs and fears is to be present. Because in the present moment, everything is fine. I'm here. I exist. And I know that my life is an ecstatic explosion of synchronicity at all times. It's just that I'm not always aware enough to notice it. And the same applies for all of you. If you feel like you have bad luck, if you feel like synchronicity, God, the universe isn't on your side, it's simply because you're unaware of it. You are unaware of it, but it is. That power, that force is always working in your favor, but you have to be present enough to witness it. All the proof that you need is the fact that you exist. The fact that you exist right now is proof that divinity is working in your favor. You have to think about everything that had to occur in history for you to be born, much less for you to have found my channel and be watching this video right now. This is no chance encounter. You didn't find my channel by chance. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in synchronicity, meaningful chance encounters. I believe in divinity, and I believe in faith. I believe that if you have faith that everything is working in your favor, then it always will. The universe will bend to your will. Because like I said, that is where your true power lies. Your true power lies in your divinity, not in your mind, not in your ego, not in your identity, not in your form. You can lift all the weights you want. You can get all the girls you want, buy all the cars you want. But that can never replace the fulfillment that you get from present moment awareness and allowing God, allowing the universe, allowing that divinity to enter into your life. But in order to do that, you have to be willing to sacrifice. You have to be willing to sacrifice the ego's vices. And I feel like for me, a part of the reason why I grew so attached to YouTube and identified with YouTube was because it became my vice. You see, for a while, I used girls as my vice. I used women as my vice. Read Soul Shock if you don't know what I'm talking about. I used women as my vice. I created a contingency where if women gave me validation, I felt like I was worthy of my own love. But then when I didn't receive the validation from them, I turned to YouTube. And YouTube actually gave me that sense of validation for a while. But like I said, there are ebbs and flows. Views rise and views fall. It's normal. But at the same time, you have to understand that sometimes things are meant to show you something about yourself that you may not be ready to see. And for a while, I was not ready to see nor admit to myself that YouTube had become such a great part of my identity, such a large part of my subconscious identity. And YouTube had become a vice, a toxic vice that I used to distract myself from my lack of self-worth. But by taking breaks from YouTube, I was able to deconstruct those limiting beliefs. And now I feel like I'm on the precipice of something spectacular. I feel like whenever I come back to YouTube, I'll be able to provide insight that I would have never otherwise been able to provide had I stuck to the grind, if you will. Okay, sticking to the grind is an honorable thing amongst egos, but to the soul, it's pointless. That's not to say that you shouldn't work hard or you shouldn't be consistent, but you have to know when to let go. And you have to know the difference between letting go and giving up. I'm not giving up on YouTube by any means. I'm not giving up just because my views are low. I'm letting go because I'm heeding the signs, I'm heeding the synchronicities, and I'm trusting in my intuition. I know that my life is changing very rapidly, but in order to facilitate this change and make sure that this change is sustainable, I have to be willing to follow my intuition, and that starts with me making this video right here and then me taking this break from YouTube.